Hey, so this is about Astrologians. Rinon. Stuff a little smaller.
No idea what to do with. The kid that's going through a new phase every week. Every expansion, it changes drastically, and each iteration spawns both fans and critics in equal measure. Sometimes it's really fun, sometimes it's really not. But what we can always count on is that it will be utterly broken because they just can't seem to pull it quite in line with the rest of the role. I myself have loved a few previous versions and actively disliked a couple. I've been wanting to make a video discussing Astro for a little while now, but I held off until both the Savage tier released and until I got the chance to play it in the Savage fights. With both of those boxes now ticked because I've been PFing a decent amount, it is time to deep dive a wee bit. How does the Dawntrail iteration hold?
My opinion, Astrologian. I don't know if you guys can hear me with my mic all the way over there. I normally don't eat on stream because the idea of like me ASMR, like, fucking freaks. I think that shit's gross. Like honestly, like I'm one of those people to where like the sound of people eating, like fuck no. Like one of my friends, I will not eat with them unless there is like a lot of sound going, because I'm just like, bro, no, I am not. No, I'm just.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Forgot to check that because I was away for a while. Like, I don't know why.
Hold up. Is this one finally here to stay? Is it really overpowered?
I haven't seen anything that we've seen so far in this video.
The wider point that I'd like to take a look at too are the recent changes Astro received when viewed through the lens of the overall healer role, because I think a few of them, primarily the light speed buffs, carry within them much more sweeping implications for 8.0. Let's get into it. Endwalker and Dawntrail Astro at their core are not wildly different from one another. In terms of healing kit, it managed to survive largely unscathed, with 0 removals and only a few additions. This is good, because it had an engaging, rewarding, and more than anything, exceptionally fun range of tools when it came to both healing and mitigating damage. As a job, it has a high level of uniqueness thanks to its range of setup heals, those that you'll place or proc 10, 20, or sometimes even 30 seconds in advance, and their effectiveness relies upon you correctly anticipating the incoming attack. Great examples of this are Earthly Star, which needs to be set 10 seconds in advance to reach peak potency.
One of the things about Astrologian and that job and like class design that I think Final Fantasy does extremely well is like Astrologian is supposed to be like seeing into the future and like reading fate and all that shit. I love the fact that their kit gets massively utilized by being able to know the timing of an entire fight. Like, man, the difference in playing Astrologian from the moment you get Earthly Star to the moment you don't, when like you don't, is like a night and day difference in playing the game. Or then you just feel like a white mage, a shitty spell.
Macrocosmos, which rewards you setting up before party-wide attacks to replenish HP bars afterwards, scaling with the amount you're able to collate under it, and Horoscope, which needs to be paired with a GCD heal to extend it and buff its usefulness. I think it's fair to say that this makes it rewarding to play right, but kind of risky. Such levels of planning
seems like it would be really easy, but I often accidentally do my heals in the opposite order. I do my like GCD heal and then the Earthly Star, or sorry, the Horoscope.
Oh yeah, because the Horoscope builds up heals, right?
Horoscope is a heal itself, but it's a really small heal, and it gets buffed if you use a GCD heal while it's up. Okay, so yeah, basically it's a really small heal, and I think a little regen as well.
Oh.
But no, I guess it's not a regen. But the one that you use in combination with it is basically like Medica 2, if you're familiar with that one from White Mage. Yeah.
With the randomness.
Ideally, you'd use Horoscope, and then you use the Helios conjunction, and then
Helios.
When Horoscope pops, it gets bigger. It doubles the strength of Horoscope.
Of 7 players you've never met before of various skill levels that you might run into in Party Finder. I've always loved Astro's healing kit because it's so multifaceted and it rewards careful forethought, but what really prevented me from diving deep into the job in Endwalker was that I just did not enjoy Astrodyne as a job mechanic whatsoever. To me, it felt tacked on and antithetical to the time age fantasy that I used to love. So
that's actually a really accurate description of Astrodyne. Because like Astrodyne didn't feel like it was part of anything. I hated Astrodyne. Really, it was a bitch to me.
Now in Dawntrail that they've gutted it, I've been playing it a whole lot more. This video is sponsored by Dragon Raja. Dragon Raja is one of the most popular next generation open world cyberpunk style anime MMOs, and on August 22nd, it's about to get even more exciting. I think we're all here on this video because our favorite game is a glorified dress-up simulator. So I'm happy to report that Dragon Raja has a robust and really impressive level of character customization.
Yo, the fucking shade on Final Fantasy right there. Holy shit. God damn, you didn't have to put him down in the middle of this ad. Jesus. But it's true, like this game is just a dress-up fantasy doll player.
Customization of its own. With the brand new update comes the 16th class Dragon Rider. The new Dimensional Realm Season Mode floors to truly test your skills and gain exclusive rewards from triumphing. New and returning players can also get the adorable Milky Barrow Motoro for free by logging in during the event duration. If you join Dragon Raja's communities, you can also have a chance to win various rewards, including a Nintendo Switch. Click the download link in the description to check it out for yourself, and once
So
more,
weird. I just watched this
thank you
video
so much
like,
for sponsoring this
most
video.
of the way through before we did this.
The real nucleus of the Astro Change.
I don't remember any of this part. The crazy like anime detract from the main thing is all new to me.
I hear people doting behind me. Yep. Fucking wig, I run these. Jesus Christ.
Come from the rework of the card system. I still very much do feel that this was a, well, technically solution to the issue of the job that avoided taking any real risk, and I'll explain why. Previous cards were one of, if not the deepest job mechanic in the entire game. Not only would you need to select the correct target on both odd and even windows based on your random melee or range card, and before I get the comment, which I get every single time from the uninformed, no. Playing it correctly was not as simple as slapping a ranged card on a ranged DPS and a melee card on a melee DPS. If you wanted to do it right, you'd pay attention to the damage profiles of each job and correctly place those cards, sometimes to the GCD, to line up with their DPS spikes.
Fucking true. In all of Endwalker, there was one time when I was a DPS, and like, this Astrologian fucking made me nut. I was playing a Reaper, and every time I went to my 1 minute and 2 minute Enshroud, they would time that melee card so fucking perfectly. On the 1 minute, it was right when I went into Enshroud. On the 2 minute, it was like midway in my first Enshroud. So that way I would get the buff on both Communos, and oh my god, so good.
I actually think I was playing with you when that happened, because I think we were in Fracture and you were talking about it the whole time.
No, dude, that shit was like, holy shit. That was amazing.
Yeah, I remember looking at the balance stuff, and like there was like a whole priority on which jobs to give cards to in the 2 minute and the 1 minute, and they were not the same.
Mm-hmm. They're so drastically different.
Yeah, like the burst phases of each job is just like very different, and you'd be surprised that like I think Summoner was basically like card priority for caster all the time in 1 minute and 2 minutes.
Yeah. Did you always have Bahamut, and Phoenix going? Where like nobody else had it? Like melee, like Red Mage does.
I mean, it makes sense. Basically, if you look at the jobs that are really strong in the openers, that was also basically the card priority, at least for 2 minutes.
I should figure out a way to make my face into an Ahihigo face and make that into. You should see what happens when a Sage gives me Krasis and I'm playing Warrior. Holy, I get a boner so hard it splits my desk in half. Anyways,
and during 2 minute burst,
I do really love the non-randomness, and like even beyond the cards, the like melee and ranged cards. I like the non-randomness on the Lady and Lord of Crowns, because that was like really nonsense.
That shit was bad.
Yeah, it's like, really nice having Lord of Crowns when you want it and Lady of Crowns when you need it.
Oh yeah, like when you go into the 2 minute, like you have a Lady of Crowns and you're just like
yeah,
I gotta use a heal. Yeah, especially when it's like a downtime, like 2 minute. Oh man.
Yeah, and I mean honestly, having to track all the different signs was straight nonsense too. Like I for one am happy that they've gotten rid of that because that was just like a whole extra layer of nonsense to track. Because you had to get like if you didn't get at least 2, you're basically gonna run out of mana like all the time.
Yep. And this is like, you gotta make redraw useful, Astrologian, dude.
Right? Yeah.
Split-second decision making. It was hard, and those cream of the crop top 20 or so Astros last expansion will probably look especially fondly on that difficult mental game that they managed to master. With that said, such a min-maxy mechanic doesn't really belong in the Final Fantasy XIV of today. Now, you still have 2 cards with the same function, but you know they're coming in advance thanks to the removal of the RNG elements, meaning that from the very start of the pull, your card targets are locked in. This is a lot easier to accomplish and makes it more doable by the average player, which really, let's be honest, is a good thing. I don't take issue with these changes at all, and the more that I've played it in Party Finder and found it very comfy and relaxing to do correctly, just like...
On that topic, like, biggest reason why I stayed away from Astrologian and Endwalker was because it was so complicated with the cards and Astrodyne. So the change
it was too much.
Yeah, it is. It's like you need. Not only do you need to know the most insane 2-minute opener or like opener in general in the game. Like Astrologian, like Endwalker had 4 different openers, all depending on like what happened on your cards. Like, so you had to learn that, and then you had to learn every other like DPS like their burst phases and when to use it and what to be looking out for. Dude, boy.
And also keeping track of Astrodyne, and yeah, it was too much. I think that currently Astrologian has tons of skill expression still. Like you can tell a good Astrologian from a bad one.
Oh yeah,
pretty easily. And I think that the skill floor is raised up to the point where you can play with somebody that's a bad Astrologian and it's not gonna like completely grief your group.
Like the other 3 healers would,
which I think is a great place to be.
The more I feel that the job design team,
like I still think it's the hardest of all the healers. I mean,
it should be.
Yeah, just the opener. The opener itself is just so fast. Like it's faster than any other opener because, like, especially if you're using any kind of spell speed, like double weaving all those things in like a 1.4 GCD or whatever is just like even with light speed, it's just so fast.
Double weaving at 1.4, you better have like perfect ping.
Yeah.
Shunted card plays linked to party damage in the way they did. The other 4 I still haven't come round on though. They're boring. In the 6 extreme and savage encounters we've had so far, I have never once felt that a single card was of incredibly important value to me, and only once or twice was there a reason to attempt to play them smartly, and that was mainly linked to buffing spread arrows via a well-timed
I super agree with this. Like most of the time,
in previous videos, I've posted alternative,
like,
mitigative, and curative options for the cards that
they're not even always
single
target heals. They're like single target mitigation sometimes.
Job archetype that I wish was more pronounced, but I'm not going to retread that ground here. If you want them in more detail, you can go back and watch my Which Healers Are Strongest in Dawntrail video. I think
here, I'll break it down for y'all right now. Astrologian Scholar, f everything else. Okay, bye.
That valid feedback doesn't really require a proposed solution, and that sometimes pushing your preferred option can actually detract from the feedback you're trying to give. So, my feedback is that I think current cards are boring. I don't need them to be reverted, but I'd love if they felt a little more connected to the core of the job's kit, rather than the Brussels sprouts that you have to morosely push around on your plate after sampling the much more delicious damage cards. What these changes served to do secondarily was to shift a higher percentage of their damage into their personal, rather...
Real talk, I want to love the fact that there's so much Honeybee Lively when he's talking about playing a healer in Prague. Because f this fight. Even on reclears, this fight still sucks. Sucks.
I think in one of his other videos where he discusses the raid tier, though, he said that the heal checks in M1 and M2 are, like, basically nothing. Like, there's really no need for a huge amount of healing. Like, M3 is, like, the first one where it feels, like, valuable to be a healer.
Rather than their raid DPS contribution. This, once more, makes them even better in pug situations.
But I would say
thanks to their
conversely,
potency
like,
changes,
it feels
my
like healers, like, the
gosh,
only
they're
job that
really
matters
strong
on
right now.
Yeah, healers. That is
the
so like in my opinion, M1 is a tank check because it has positioning. which is honestly really annoying. M2 is a memory check, which is why it's the worst one. M3 is a healer check. M4 is like a little bit of everything.
Yeah, for sure.
A little less.
That sounds about right to me. Yeah, the only thing you got to be able to do is remember whether you're a 2 or a 3.
Yeah. Yeah. How many? Okay.
Strongest healer in terms of damage in literally every fight by a wide margin, which, considering the multifaceted and potent nature of their healing kit and the light speed changes we'll talk about next, is kind of crazy. If we go look at the statistics, Astrologian is tracking at least 500 DPS ahead of every other healer, sometimes pushing 650 to 700.
Look at that gap on a white mage! Holy shit! That's 11. That's more than 1,100 more DPS. What the dude? What the I didn't, man.
Yeah, it's nuts. If you're playing a white mage, you're just like griefing for sure right now. It's like, I just want to have worse heals, worse mobility, and also bring way less damage.
Yeah, holy shit. Man, 7-1's gonna be the white mage patch. Holy shit. Better be, or otherwise they're gonna nerf the shit out of Astrologian. Oh, damn.
It's a wide margin by Final Fantasy XIV standards, and when you look at it versus white...
For the people, like, if y'all don't pay attention to this kind of stuff, that's fair. So right now, you notice how, like, there was, like, this, like, big uproar about Gunbreaker? Gunbreaker is 300 more DPS than the closest, and everybody in the tanks are like, Gunbreaker, so much, Gunbreaker, best job, Gunbreaker, so great, Gunbreaker, so amazing. This shit is 1,000 more DPS. This is literally almost 4 times worse. Holy shit.
Mage, the other
and proportionally, it's also a bigger deal because their damage total is lower, right? So, like, if the Astrologians are averaging like 14k versus 13k, it's like, you know, it's like a 12% increase versus like the tanks that are like at 17.3 or whatever versus 17. It's like 1% difference or whatever, like 2% difference.
This is also the difference of being able to clear M2S with one stack, with like that extra stack or not. Like, holy shit.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, if the Astrologian's doing what they need to do, like, you can honestly, M2 becomes a joke compared to what it is without.
Differential is close to 1,000. With any other role, this would be a disparity to the extent that it would cause complaints from dedicated players. If we look back to Abyssos, a big chunk of those unbalanced jobs had a disparity in or below that region. This isn't exactly a surprise, nor has it been the first time that Astro has been in the position of being just a little bit busted, but it helps to frame why I was so surprised about the next change. Light speed. So one of the key weaknesses that nipped at the buds of this behemoth of a healer was the fact that they had very limited free movement. Your light speed was a 90-second cooldown, but in order to play your DPS rotation correctly in both Endwalker and Dawntrail, you needed to lean on the instant weaves it provided to not delay your raid tools on the 2-minute windows, meaning that they had to align with one another. This turned your 90-second light speed into a 2-minute pseudo raid buff that had no agency in its use, and I think we can all agree it was badly designed as a result. It may as well not have existed at that point. They could have just lumped the instant casts in as a secondary effect of divination and called it a day, because nothing would have changed.
Yeah, whereas currently you get 3 light speeds you can use whenever.
It needed an alteration of some kind,
every 2 minutes.
Square Enix have provided one. But what they ended up releasing was not what I expected at all, honestly. The stacks are not a surprise, but what is are the reduction to a 60-second cooldown combined with no nerf to the overall duration of the buff. This means that if you factor in using 1 swift cast every minute, honestly, you don't even need that, but we'll leave it there for posterity's sake, your 2 dot refreshes, and your 15-second light speed, Astro can now spend over a third of its time with completely free movement. No cost bars on heals, on DPS, and free double weaves.
Think about the dot.
This buff is so consequential that it might genuinely be the most strong part of the job as an entirety now. It immediately went from the worst healer in terms of movement to the best, and it isn't even close. It's the best by a country mile. Going from playing Scholar and White Mage this tier over to Astro was a bit of a shock to the system, because all the mechanics that I had carefully planned my movement and timings for on the former jobs, I could just hit light speed and run around without a care in the world on the latter. because major
insane.
movement mechanics often have breaks between them. This 60-second cooldown meant that it and Swiftcast enabled me to cover basically every single problem challenge without any tight movements whatsoever. And you know what? It was kind of a lot of fun because
It's
I
like
felt like
watching
Yeah, like I like that in the
Traditionally,
in the
I'd say
video
that.
he's not slide casting anything, he's just walking around.
Yeah, like this is insane.
Astro being the healer with the best movement and the most damage.
It makes me mad because I spent literally hours and hours practicing my slide casting as a stage. Like, what the
And some of the most broken healing tools and crazy raid buffs and the best pure healer mitt and OGCD healing and also, by the way, the best healing tanks, and they are weak at nothing at all. Traditionally, I would call that a bad thing. And logically, it is. But man, I did have a really good time playing it these past few days, and isn't the most important metric whether it's fun or not, really. In that, it wins.
100% agree. 100% agree. The most important thing about this fucking game is that it's fun. I don't care if it's overpowered. I don't care if it deals like ridiculous amounts. As long as I can clear and still have fun, that's what matters. That's what matters. And I think that's why we still have white mages. They're still having fun and they're still getting clears. Like, if it was anything like what happened, like Ricky was saying in Pandemonium, to where like Jake just got X. Like, told no.
Yeah, we had crazy deep DPS checks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was even commenting to my chat whilst joining clear parties.
Clear and fun. What is this, Monster Hunter? Dude, I'm not gonna lie. If I could actually like enjoy and play those games, I would play Monster Hunter. I really would. But one thing that's really big about me about like like dodging attacks and stuff like that is that the animations better be fucking accurate. If it's just like this tail goes through a boulder or some shit and then still hits me, hell no. I will instantly quit the game. It will make me so mad beyond belief. Like, it's the reason I stopped playing Elden Ring after playing it for like 8 hours. It's because I got to the first like actual big boss and like his staff went through the ground and still counted as hitting me, and I was like, yeah, I'm done with this game.
That I felt like a god because of how much influence I could bring to bear.
That's interesting that you have that feeling with Final Fantasy, because I feel like a lot of times the animations don't add up with the, you know, what's actually happening. Like, you literally walk into animations all the time.
That's because like I said, like where the like dodging like the animation really matters. To where in Final Fantasy the animation is a cue for what to do.
Sure.
Does that make sense? Because yeah, like,
well, like let's take like Honeybee line for example, right? Like you could literally just like wait for the line, the yellow AOE to go away and walk into it. And I feel like that is just strictly counter to what we were just saying about animations lining up.
No, that's completely fine because it's just snapshot done. But like say like if I had to parry Honeybee Lively like in like if it was like a Monster Hunter or a Elden Ring game where those animations really matter.
Oh, sure, yeah.
That's where I'm just like, okay, yeah, you. Like, where it's just like in Final Fantasy, like, you know, it's just snap, it takes its picture, and then like that's where we go off of. But in those games where like the millisecond matters, to where it's like landing that parry it like help you a ton, or you're just gonna die and lose all your shit. Like, that's where I drew the line. Where I was just like, that's why like when it went through the floor and hit me, I was like, really? How am I supposed to parry that? Like, what the so
was
but me just being bad, yeah.
going so easily on it. So that leads me to the question that I would like to pose to you, the viewer, and hopefully you, the commenter, once you've thought about it. Are the light speed changes good? Or I suppose
Yes.
more to the point, are they fair?
No.
In the individual bubble of Astro gameplay itself, I would argue this more than any other healer is the correct recipient to these newfound speed boots. But if we draw out the lens a little bit and look at the healers as a role, it raises an interesting topic. Now I suppose it's time to explain exactly what I mean.
I'm not gonna lie, it really seems like with Dawntrail, they're trying to break the mold that they have for roles. Because like you have like healer, like each role has like its main thing where it's just like your physical DPS or your range DPS or your caster DPS, but each one like after that it splits into two different things, and like everything kind of followed that mold until Dawntrail with like the introduction of Picto and Viper and like these Astrologian changes. Because like I don't like
because Astrologian is basically a physical range now.
Well, not just that, like their kit is like they're so hard on like in between both that like if it wasn't for like Scholar just having like the biggest shields in the game, Sage Astro would probably be number one for like mitigation purposes. Where I used to be good at parry on LS and then in CB, but I haven't played in a long time. See, I'm terrible. I get as long as like none of that crazy shit happens. But anyways, totally sidetracked my own train of thought there. My bad. So you have to like Astro is like not just like pure regen anymore. Like it has like a lot of shields that it can put out. I don't think it got a percentage mitigation though, did it?
It did, yeah. That's the level 100 ability is a 10% mit.
Oh my god. Okay, Astro is just all over the place.
Yeah, they just literally
disgusting.
everything now.
Yeah, and Picto.
Actually, collective unconscious was always a mitigation, wasn't it?
I think. Oh.
It reduces damage taken by 10%.
Oh wow! So they get double mit. Wow, that's busted. So they get
plus
2 mits.
and Lady of Crowns gives a shield. Neutral Psych also turns all of your GCD heals into shields.
Yeah, which is insane. Then you have Viper, which is like the 1 minute bursty boy that doesn't have a buff, which is weird. Then you have Picto, which is a range caster with a buff that cannot res.
Right.
Like, are we gonna have a tank that can't mitigate but can only invuln? Like,
they have a 30-second invuln.
Yeah, dude, it's just like
they can't mit.
No defense, like, and they use like cloth armor, so they just get like autoed for a truck. Then it's just like, okay, I'm immune to damage for like 20 seconds. Okay, we're good. They're gonna be like the 2 minute tank, to where it's just like you tank for 2 minutes, and we all just burst our damage and we swap back.
White Mage
I think honestly, it would be more reasonable if they, instead of decreasing the light speed charge time to 60 seconds from 90, if they had increased it from 90 to 2 minutes, but gave you the extra charge. Because, like, effectively, you were getting 2 minutes per light speed anyway, because you had to use it in the raid buff. So instead, you'd be able to use one inside and one outside, which would make, I think, sense. Or just give you one, and then, like he was saying, make Divination also give you light speed for 15 seconds or whatever.
It's a genius idea. Crazed, right? Ninja, Return of the Evasion tank. Facts, bro. It's going to heavenwards, the Ninja.
And they also have pretty strong movement as well when you factor in everything. Their 2-dot refreshes and Swiftcast have parity with that of Astro. And in terms of their unique tools, they have 3 Afflatus heals per minute as well as the misery generated by them, all of which are instant cast GCDs. This totals 4 for 10 seconds of movement on base recast time. It isn't all that much less, and it has the advantage of being spaced out in such a way that you can spend it incrementally rather than using it all at once. That in itself is a form of balance. Astro can move freely for longer, whereas White Mage can spend those shorter 1 GCD treks as and when needed.
I'm not gonna lie, it sounded like he was trying to convince himself when he was talking about like Astrologian can just, you know, ignore the game, and White Mage, you know, they can do things, yeah.
But there's a catch. A big one.
Yeah.
White Mage's core
I mean,
fundamental
one thing
curative
that White
AoE
Mage gets is like the lilies are already going to be instant casts, which I assume is what he was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
he was
like,
just comparing like their overall like free movement time versus each other.
Yeah, and they've made the lilies damage neutral with the blood lily, so using them on as a GCD isn't actually that bad.
AoE skill is Afflatus Rapture, which, yes, is also their movement tool. So if White Mage uses this purely for movement, they are explicitly lowering their healing capabilities during that window, and the only real reprieve from it is to try your best to push yourself into a position to be able to double dip on value from both. But Astro gets that boon, and more of it for free, able to save all their potent cooldowns for when they're needed for their primary use, keeping the party safe. No opportunity cost whatsoever. A similar division can be seen in the barrier healers too, as has been the case for a long time. To use Sacred Soil, Indom, and Lustrate, Scholar must expend Aetherflow stacks, which directly reduce their personal DPS ceiling, whereas Sage get equivalents to those very same abilities with the same limit of 3 per minute, but no opportunity cost aside from that. This quirk between the shield healers has always been very interesting to me because it feels somewhat comparable between another role in this game that is a bit of a hot topic. Dark Knight versus the other three.
You fucking bitch, you had to bring it up. I was watching this because of the Astrologian video, then you had to bring Dark Knight into this. You fucking whore. You fucking whore. Also, this is a Shadowbringer's cinematic, and he doesn't have Shadowbringer. There's so much wrong.
Tanks.
Anyways.
The Blackest Knight has an opportunity cost. If you do not proc it successfully, you lose DPS. Whereas the other 3 tanks can...
No, it is not an opportunity cast. It is, you have to use it going into your 2 minutes so you can do your 2 minute correctly. Shut the fuck up.
Use their short defensives
okay,
for
I'm not
free.
that mad.
Dark Knight has some unique advantages with their short cooldowns, yes, but they are the only one with a potential loss by nature. So I take us back around this weird cyclical conversation once more. Should these jobs have more limitation or less? Does it not matter at all if different jobs have wildly different opportunity costs linked to their core job responsibilities? If fun is really the only metric that matters whatsoever, what is to be done? There are
I feel like he's skipping something right there. So, fun shouldn't just be like whatever is like wacky, whoa, this is cool. Like, it should feel good to play and enjoyable. Using your role for like what it's intended to do and then getting punished for it is the worst feeling in the goddamn game. Imagine being a DPS and then you go to use your big 2 minute big damage dick button, but you lose like 89% of your HP for it. 90% of the time, and especially in Savage, you're not going to be able to use that because your 2 minute is in the middle of a fucking raid wide that's going off. Like, it's just so bad. Let alone the fact that HP pools are so huge right now. And the boss damage is so low on auto attacks. You cannot use TBN on anything shorter than 3 auto attacks. It is a 7-second buff. Auto attacks are at 2.5 seconds coming out of the boss. Most of the time. Do the math. Like, you have to perfectly time your first TBN in between the auto attack swinger so you can fit 3 autos in to break a TBN. Outside of that, the only use TBN has is to throw out there during a raid wide that's already getting more mitigated than fucking Jesus. And you better pray to God your caster has around this 2500 HP pool. Once they start reaching like 130k to 136k, it won't always break your TBN. I've literally had it to where I threw a TBN on a black mage and it did not break off of a raid wide. It is awful. Anyways, rant over.
Discussions bubbling up around Dark Knight's myriad problems, with the Blackest Knight.
I mean, that one seems
at
least like an obvious fix. Like, they should just make it work on expiration. Like, there's no reason why it shouldn't.
Agreed, 100%.
I hope this video acts to draw a nice little comparison to how this train of thought isn't unique to that job, nor that role. And on top of that, I would like to collect your thoughts. I guess this video was a bit of a trip, really. I started off talking about how I had a great time on Astro, and it's really bloody strong, maybe a little too strong, since the changes, and I ended up talking on the innate variance between jobs within a role. But that's fine, I guess. Thank you so much.
Hey man, that's how like all my conversations go. We're gonna start talking about pudding, and then we're gonna end up, talking about like how heart surgery works.
For watching. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.
Ah, man. I don't...
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I don't know how, like, let's say they do want to nerf Astrologian, which it seems like they're pretty opposed to doing in general. Like, usually they just buff everything else, right?
Usually, yeah.
But, like, let's say you did want to nerf Astro, like, how would you even do it, right? Because, like, if you want to just nerf their personal DPS, then it is going to go kind of back to what it was before, where, like, Astrologian is way better in a, like, static than it is in PF.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe you could just nerf their raid buffs. Like, if Divination was, like, 4% instead of 6% or something, maybe that would be okay?
No, because that makes a bunch of like, issues with, like, yes checks. I don't think, like, the answer... To me, the answer isn't nerfing it. Because you can't nerf it down to, like, white mage levels. Just because then that kind of kills, like, double regen healer as a potentiality. I don't know if people do that, but it still could be a thing. I just don't... Yeah, I just don't think the answer is to nerf Astrologian. If anything, I would agree with, like, making Lightspeed 2 minutes and giving you 2 charges, so that way you get one at the 1 minute, one at the 2 minute. And possibly reduce their card buffs in damage.
Sure.
But even still, then that's kind of sketch.
I think you could also just like boost the personal damage of Sage and White Mage just a little bit, and that would be fine as well.
Yeah, I honestly see that being a thing to where like White Mage is just gonna get a huge potency buff to like literally everything,
Right.
and Sage is probably gonna get they're gonna do something to Phlegma because that's what they do every single time when Sage is low on DPS.
It's always Phlegma.
It's always Phlegma. Like, go look at Endwalker, every patch, it's just like Phlegma, 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 Phlegma. Change time, reduce time. Okay, now it's in the 2 minute. Now we're gonna buff it, we're gonna buff it, we're gonna buff it, we're gonna buff it, we're gonna buff it. Ooh, too much. Nerf. Buff, buff, buff. Like, I don't know.